Hello, kids. Did you miss us while we were away? We certainly missed you, T-Rex. Are you happy that we're home? We're happy that you're home. We're home. What do we have? Out the door, weather, and more. We've got a ton of everything today. Let's go see if the forsythia is in bloom. We had a couple of buds here in early January when we were in the 50s, and here we are now in the end of January, headed for the 50s. There they are. They kind of shriveled. We did have a couple of cold days in there. Had probably about 10 days with snow on the ground, and now it's just a gorgeous Sunday morning, ready for some football. How is it that we have glassy air, glassy water, and calm air right now? When I came across New York last night, as the sun was going down, I did see some ice on the Finger Lakes, and I love that it tells you how fast you were going. 671 miles per hour. Have you ever gone 671 miles per hour? There's no wind down here on the ground right now at my house, but up in the sky, the wind is going about 150 miles an hour, and it's going to get stronger before it gets weaker. It's just amazing how quiet the weather is, considering that this morning it's 1 degree in Frenchville, Maine, and 45 degrees on Block Island in Nantucket. That's a 44-degree gradient. And there's no storm. There's action. There's a couple of fronts, but it's not a storm. It's low pressure to the north. Okay, let's do some updates. I did empty these things before I left, and that was a week ago. Oh, wow, I think there's a little ice. Let's water the worms. There's the ice. See it? We got that much ice. We got that much rain. I don't know, a couple inches of rain again. Some parts of New England must have gotten about a foot of H2O, liquid equivalent, so far this January. Mount Washington, I believe, is passing about 90 inches of snow. So it's been a warm, snowy January. Yet we have nothing to show for it down here. This is really interesting. Glass. It's all about the glass this morning and the gradient. You think there's a gradient in New England? This morning in Cook, Minnesota, it's 30 below zero. And in Brownsville, Texas, it's 70 degrees. I've always said, watch out when there's a 100-degree temperature gradient in the lower 48, and there is. It's really hard to explain. Well, we all say wind is air moving from high to low pressure, and that's a weak low pressure system on a front going across northern New England today, and it is snowing again at the Canadian border. We pick up another probably 6 to 10 inches of snow around Jay Peak today into tomorrow, and then that front settles off to the south. But the upper level wind, we'll look at the 300 millibar flow that I showed just a few minutes ago, the jet stream, just kind of shearing these weather systems to bits that are coming through here. So we have a front coming through tomorrow with hardly any precipitation. So a lot of clouds around here with very little going on in southern New England. It's confluent flow aloft, air from southern Canada coming down into the Great Lakes, and air from the Gulf of Mexico coming up towards southern New England. And it's just ripping 250 miles an hour up in the sky this week. And that's confluent flow that's going to shear any storms to bits as they try and come our way. So we're going to have bits of energy going across southern Canada. That means warmer for southern New England. And then later in the week, energy is going to go off to our south as it turns colder in New England. A batch of cold comes in midweek. It's just kind of seasonable to borderline Arctic air coming in Wednesday, Thursday. What about that big storm we talked about that was in the North Pacific last week when China was so cold? They had a huge storm form over the Pacific Ocean. Well, now it's going to be North America turning so cold. It is already wall-to-wall cold in Canada, and it's going to double down before it dips up, lifts out, dips down, lifts out. And there is a mega storm forecast for the North Atlantic. Bits of energy going across southeastern Canada, on Tuesday, Wednesday, with other energy going north of the Bahamas, Wednesday, Thursday, and those two streams are going to phase and merge into a superstorm way up near Greenland. So all this energy and all this action, and in Boston, it just looks like a quiet week with the temperature going down after a warm, beautiful Sunday. Not too much sunshine. And then going down midweek and then coming up a little, and then the Arctic front comes in on Thursday and Friday, but that high pressure system is going to go off to the south and east so fast it's going to be frigid for a day or two, and that's what happens a lot of times when you get kind of the polar vortex. It's just a really tight, fast moving little cyclone up in the sky, and now there may be enough onshore component to generate ocean effect snow from Cape Ann to Cape Cod with that. Otherwise, believe it or not, here we are in the heart of winter. The anniversary of the blizzard of 78 is next weekend, and we have no storms forecast. I know I said don't trust the forecast for more than a couple of days, and maybe that's true, but there has been consistency in all the guidance. I always say look for the consistency, and the consistency is we're just going to have these transitions with wind shifts, south today, and then light tomorrow, and then maybe a shower, a snow shower tomorrow evening, and then gusty from the northwest, then it lets up again, and then it's going to be gusty from the north, and tremendous wind. Look at that storm again, that 945 low near Greenland with a 1045 high over the Great Lakes. It's a 100 millibar pressure gradient coming at us late in the week, so we're going to have the deep freeze. Maybe we get a day of pond hockey out of that, and then it warms back up, and guaranteed more action after that. We're just kind of in a lull. We had 3 storms in 8 days, and Mother Nature always finds a way to just impress us in one way or another, and I'm fascinated with the 150-mile-an-hour wind up there and very little wind down here near the ground. So yesterday was a fly day. I've missed so much in Moore from Monarch Beach a couple days ago. I met a monarch butterfly expert. I saw people surfing. And then highlights from the jet ride home. Little snippets from all that. I'll try and do more of a broad post on all of the action later on. I know I always say I'll do more later. It was supposed to be cold. Yes, I blew the forecast. It was supposed to be an Arctic front well before now. So close yet so far. Feels about 10 degrees colder today, Friday, January 27th, because the wind has shifted. It's coming onshore today. Here at Sea Terrace Park. What a beautiful spot. Yesterday there were some overhead sets I saw. We'll see how it's doing today. There goes a blimp. Torrey Pines. PGA Farmers. It's 55 miles south of here. It's a different kind of snail. It's alive. Gulls are pointed into the wind today, which is from, looks like the west or southwest. Yesterday it was offshore Santa Ana, and the faces of the waves were more like 8 or 10 feet. Today it looks more like 6 to 8 feet. It's still gorgeous. Yeah. Imagine what it's like on a big day. On this beautiful Friday in January with a gorgeous setting. Hi, I'm Tim Kelly from Cape Cod. What's your name? Where are you from?
So I'm John Wahl. I'm from Alabama. So I am a leptozoologist by trade, which, to put that into a normal term that people would understand, I'm a butterfly farmer. So I raise butterflies for zoos and botanical gardens around the country.
Leptozoologist?
Zoologist. So it's the lepto is from the Greek word lepidoptera, which is a classification for butterflies and moths.
5 years old, watching butterflies and saying someday.
Absolutely. So I grew up on a farm, and I love the outdoors. So I love nature. I love to be out in the woods, and butterflies were special. You know, I just always enjoyed it. So yeah, I grew up on a farm with a butterfly net, and just when I got old enough to think about what I wanted to do with for a living, I heard about butterfly farming. It's like, hey, if somebody else can do it, I can do it. So
I love that. I was 5 years old staring at clouds.
Oh, there you go. That's right.
Still doing that.
I tell people, give a shot. Try to do what you love. You know, especially young people. It doesn't always work out, but give it a shot. Give it a try. Butterfly farming is actually a lot more like other types of farming than you would think. You start off with your breeding stock, and then you have them. They lay eggs. You then raise the caterpillars. They'll spin their cocoons or pupate into the pupa stage, and those will hatch out and be adults. And I usually sell them, so you basically you have your breeders, you raise the young ones to market age. I usually sell them in that cocoon or larval stage. So the monarch migration is fascinating. It's really almost a miracle of nature. And so you see a lot of, but those numbers have been dwindling over the last year. So you see a lot of conservation work, planting milkweed areas for them during their migration, to stops along the way, and also their final destination. And there's eastern monarchs and western monarchs.
In Boston, I see monarchs. Do they go to Mexico?
So the eastern monarchs all go to the mountains of Mexico, outside of Mexico City, actually.
That's where they are now, I would assume?
Yes, that's correct. And then the western monarchs also, they don't go to the same spot. They have a different overwintering ground than the eastern monarch, and they'll fly all the way to Mexico. And then they overwinter there. Now, a normal monarch only lives for 4 weeks, but that final brood will live all winter. And they live all winter down in Mexico in the mountains, and then they'll come back, and that they make it back to usually northern Mexico, southern Texas. They lay their eggs, then the next brood will grow, they'll hatch, and they'll keep that migration going.
So is that how the brood works from New England to Mexico? It's not the butterfly goes as far as it can in 6 weeks?
Well, on the way down, they go all the way.
Oh, they do?
It's on the way back that it comes in stages as the weather warms up in the spring.
How long does it take them to fly from Boston to Mexico City?
They're fast. It doesn't take them long.
No way.
They're down there in usually, a couple weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Does look green. Canyons, land, national park, something like that. Canyon lands. Just like air moving, water moving, wind, wind, W-I-N-D, air and water, fluids, pretty much just always wind from high to low pressure. Tim, stop talking about the weather.